I think I mentioned I'm pushing 87 and I'm still going strong. And I don't ever want to let up because if I do, I'll say, honey, close the lid. It's all over. And
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for joining us on Second Act TV. Today, I'm so happy to welcome back one of my favorite guys, love and relationship counselor and sexual health expert, Frank Wiegers. Frank, thanks so much for joining me again.
oh, Silke, it's always great fun to be with you. You know, I was just thinking about that when we made the appointment. We go back over 4 years, I think, since we did our first video with you.
Absolutely. You were one of the original ones that you were always and still are a huge support to Second Act, and I thank you for that. And yeah, one of our first videos is still has the record for the most views. So our viewers love you because you put out really, really important information, along with your beautiful wife, Judith, who is the co-author of your books, and the one that you just launched while we're here today talking, the Magical Sex Book, Create and Sustain Amazing Sex in 4 Simple Steps. And one of the first things that I read in this book, and it just kind of ding, 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 this is so important. You reference a study that was done in 2016, a sexual satisfaction study that clearly lays the groundwork for why this book is so important.
When I saw that study, I went, oh my God, that was me. Because the study interviewed married couples, long-term relationship couples separately. And they asked the men if they thought they were good lovers. And 85% of the men said that they were good to great lovers. Then when they got to the women and they asked them what they thought about their husbands, did they think they were good lovers? And only 15%, that's 15%, said that their husbands were lovers. So what does that tell us? 2 things. 1, guys don't know what they don't know. And 2, women aren't telling them the truth,
Yeah.
the reality. So this really highlights such a big gap in the communication between men and women in the bedroom.
Right, right. No, I agree. And as I read that, and then related it to my life. We women, especially in long term relationships, we are prone to condition men to keep giving us bad sex. It's likely that we're not satisfied because there's so much learning involved. In creating, as you say here, magical sex. And because we're afraid to speak up, we put this into, or we create a pattern where we just continue on because we don't want to speak up. And I think that's really, really important to point out because, especially on this channel, Frank, I get so many comments from men that, women, older women, they just don't want sex anymore. Once they hit menopause, sex is over with, And it's just the complete opposite of that is true. Yes, there are reasons, and it does happen, but all that can be overcome if you have communication and you understand what's going on.
Well, we need to learn the value of communication, and especially for those who are in long-term relationships. Again, I want to say to the guys, if you're here watching this, many kudos to you because that means that you're willing to learn. And women, you have to be willing to teach the man. Now, I hear from some women, well, they think that the guy should come to the relationship already trained and expert. Sorry, it's just not the way it is. There's no place for guys to learn the reality of having a great relationship and a great passionate love life with a woman. It's not taught. They teach sex ed in school, but they don't teach sexual pleasure in relationship. They teach you, and then you got your parents and your friends who know probably a lot less than you do. So where do you go to learn this stuff?
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I wrote this book, because I was one of those 85% guys. I thought I was a pretty good lover. I was a fighter pilot, and you couldn't tell me diddly. So I finally learned that, after I realized that my partner had been asking me to touch her in a certain way for years, I said, no, I know how to touch. Every other woman is liked what I did. Well, the truth is, Every woman's different. And guys, you have to be, it depends on the particular individual women. Women, you have to understand that guys won't get it unless you tell them out loud in words what you want more than once, more than 5 times. You have to over and over ask for what you want.
And that's a
And
hard
if
thing
you
to
get,
do. That's such a hard thing to do because I know that I was one of those women. I was that woman that men, or a lot of the comments on our videos, like, well, once you're in a long term relationship where they don't want sex anymore. I didn't want sex with my husband because of resentment and stuff that I fostered, because I didn't speak up, I led him to believe that all this was okay. And I think that is such a critical point to get across. Like when I first read your book and that study, is how we condition men, and how when men allow themselves to be conditioned that they're great lovers when that's not what's happening.
that's really true. And it's hard for guys to get it because most of the time when my woman was trying to tell me what wasn't working, it was like, don't do that. Well,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's it. See ya. And I would just shut down. So that you have to know how to train your partner. And this goes for men to train their women as well. You have to, first of all, ask for what you want. And we use a process called, I have a request. Will you mind doing A, B, and C? And then, of course, they'll say, well, yeah, okay, I'll try it. And then they don't do it right. So you say, well, God, thanks so much for doing that. Would you mind doing it a little lighter or a little harder, softer, left, right, up, down, whatever? And you keep asking for that. And it's a process. It's like learning to fly an airplane. You have to do it over and over and over until it becomes such second nature and you have a muscle memory even. So you have it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to get it right on the first try. You might, but odds odds are that you're going to have to practice and learn it. And how you communicate is so vitally important. You have to ask in an inviting way.
I want to ask you one question, one follow up question to that, because
Sure.
especially for the audience that we're speaking to is 50 and over. And just as
Mhm.
you were explaining, ask this way, ask that way, be explicit, maybe demonstrate. I'm thinking there's so many women would be hesitant to do that, including me. I I don't know, can you at this age change like that? I mean, I guess what I like about these segments and these conversations is it gives you a lot to think about, and perhaps even gives you permission to be or say and do something that you never thought about doing. But I also want to acknowledge how difficult that is, and then somebody might say, I could never do that. What do you say to that?
Well, let me back up a little bit. Women, I know women are hard to talk about because they have these problems. Postmenopausal women have all these issues and they can't even talk to their gynecologist about it. I mean, 73% of women menopausal women are having painful sex more than once a week. Ouch. You know, you have to talk about that and you have to know what you're doing. There's a lot of advice about that in the book, by the way. So I want to encourage you to read it. But communicating, you have to set up the stage for asking for what you want. You can't just come out and say, honey, I want to talk about sex. The way you do it, you can't do it while he's driving a car. You can't do it while he's watching TV. You can't do it while he's reading the paper or working on whatever. So you say, can we go for a walk? Or I'd like to sit down. Let's sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk or whatever, even a glass of wine, whatever you want to do. And then say, we got a chance to recreate our relationship and generate some really passionate sex. And I'd like to do this. I heard about this book, yada, yada, and I'd like to talk about it. And then you say, well, he'll say, well, what do you want to talk about? And so, look, I want to make sure that you're getting what you want. This is the woman talking to the man. I want to make sure that you're getting what you want. I want to make sure that you give me what I want. Are you interested in doing that? And well, sure. What do you want? And he'll grouse and grumble and what all that stuff. And you got to go past that and say, look, darling, I love you and I just want this to be better. Can't we just try and have some fun with this? It's not a job. This is a game. And I was talking earlier about guys and their hobby. They'll spend tens of thousands of dollars on their hobby and got countless hours practicing doing whatever. And if they would just do 10% of that on their relationship, magic can happen. And that's what creates magic. To have magical sex, you have to have a magical relationship. And there's me, there's you, and then there's us. And that's the Holy Trinity. So you have to nurture that us guy, that relationship entity, being, whatever you want to call it, and say, okay, how can we do this? And now for those over 50 in their second act, maybe the kids are gone. So now you've got a chance to recreate that whole relationship. Think back to where you were when you got together, and all the passion and joy and excitement you had in the beginning of that relationship. Well, now's a chance to recreate that in a whole different atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense?
Absolutely. And you raised two really, really good points. For two different audiences also. After 50, a lot of us are single and we're starting over. And that's probably the easiest way to actually, if we, like me, in my marriage, I couldn't have done that. As I started over again, I'm a whole different woman. And I know that you can have magical sex after 50. And then if you are in a relationship that has gone sour in terms of intimacy, yes, you can recreate but it's a lot harder, I think, especially when you don't know what is in this book.
Well, thank you for that. That's true. That's the whole reason I wrote this book, is because I was one of those 85%ers who thought I knew it all. And when I found out I didn't, I said, okay, look, I know how to study. I did all the research I could do on how to be a great lover. And when I met Judith, which was, God, what a blessing. And I think I was 69 and she was 60 when we met. And we were both committed to having a magical, spiritual, loving relationship. And we worked at it. So I'm saying, this isn't, you aren't going to just turn the key and have this change. You're going to have to do the work. But the payoff's great.
Well, and the work is fun. The work can be really fun.
That's the attitude you need. How can we do this and have fun?
Right, exactly.
And for me, the only thing more fun than flying airplanes was being in the bedroom. And what can I say?
Well, so Frank, in closing, what would you like to leave for our viewers on what men and women perhaps need to understand and improve that communication?
Well, it's never too late to start. I think I mentioned I'm pushing 87 and I'm still going strong. And I don't ever want to let up, because if I do, I'll say, honey, close the lid. It's all over. And so I want, there's a lot of joy and passion and excitement you can regenerate in your relationship if you're willing to put in the effort. And, I had a couple that was so busy, they're both retired, comfortably fixed and everything, but their calendar was full of all kinds of appointments with other people. I said, well, when do you put in time for yourself? And so you almost even have to calendar. And I really recommend that you calendar your lovemaking. And that way you're going to have the time to do it, because there's so much passion and joy and energy that you're leaving on the table if you don't do this. I mean, if you want to go out with a song and a smile, this is the way to do it.
I love it. Well, Frank, thank you. Again, great advice. Always love talking to you. We'll link to all of your information, of course, into the book. And I look forward to talking to you again on Second Act TV.
Thanks, Silke. It was great. I love talking to you.
If If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. And when you see that little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too and we'll notify you every time that we launch a new video. See you next time.